Coming up on Big Ten basketball and beyond, Caitlin Clark goes for 31, but the record holds, and the Huskers shock the Hawkeyes. Complete coverage on the way from Lincoln. The Hawkeye men post an epic comeback at the expense of the visiting Golden Gophers, while Northwestern finds a way once again, cooling off red-hot Penn State. Highlights are on the way. Plus, the Boilers take control of the conference with a season sweep of their rival, while their closest pursuers fall further off the pace. It's time to go above and beyond. The quest for the all-time women's scoring record in NCAA basketball will continue for Caitlin Clark. Hawkeyes on the road to face Nebraska. Clark 39 away from snapping Kelsey Plum's record. She had 31 after 3, and the Hawkeyes were in control, but Clark goes scoreless in the fourth. Missed all 6 of her field goal attempts, and Jazz Shelley knocks down the cold-blooded 3, scores Nebraska's last 9. Once 14 down, the Huskers come back to beat number 2, 82-79. With that, welcome you inside our Big Ten Network studios, Big Ten basketball and beyond. Rick Pizzo, thrilled to be joined, as always, by Rafael Davis, Mike DeCourcy, John Beilein. Christy Winters-Scott is with us in just a bit for more on Nebraska's upset of Iowa and what the future holds for Caitlin Clark. But we start on the men's side, 2 Sunday games, and when it's the second Sunday in February, this is what we expect. Games going down to the wire, both locations, and a comeback that you have to see to believe by the Iowa Hawkeyes.
And it was done on the back of a freshman. You look at Owen Freeman, and I'm glad to say at this point, he is the freshman of the year in the Big Ten.
There you go.
There's no question about it. He was big time in this game.
Well, what's interesting is we did this show a week ago, and we put the standings up, and we talked about the league race and what an interesting league race, and now it's 7 days later. And do we have a race? We have races for buys and such, but do we have a race for the champion? I'm not sure now.
No, I think Purdue has established that pretty well. But the Minnesota game, I mean, just watching them, this is the next step in Ben Johnson rebuilding the Minnesota program. Understanding adversity is much easier than understanding prosperity. Everything was going right, and then it started to go wrong, and it just kept tumbling and tumbling. They couldn't get control of it. I did like Ben's temperament on the sideline. He showed great confidence as it was going on, but just not quite enough.
Yes, to paraphrase the great Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was a tale of 2 halves at Carver Hawkeye. First half, Minnesota up by 14. Iowa did not protect the basketball, led to a bunch of runouts. Mike Mitchell Jr. for the 3-ball. How about the Gophers from downtown? 8 of 12 in the 3. It continued early in the second half. Gophers still up big. It's Mitchell again. The lead is 20. Mark that down. 16 minutes to play. A couple of minutes later, Cam Christie trying to back up Rafael's statement that he would be the freshman of the year. He had 15. Gophers are still up by 19. Hawkeyes cut it down to 11. Patrick McCaffrey. This was a huge shot with just over 8 minutes to go. It's now a single-digit game. PMAC had 21. Minutes later, it's Peyton Sanford. You cannot let this guy get hot, but he's more than a three-point shooter. 21-8, Iowa's first lead since it was 4-2. And on the very next play, Sanford going inside, going outside, and going nothing but buckets. Iowa all the way back, 90-85. They trailed 77-65 before an extended run in which they scored 25 points over the last 7.5 minutes of this game. We know Iowa can play offensively, but they flipped the script and shut down everything that Minnesota had been doing in that last 10 minutes.
They had a commitment to defense in the second half. I mean, Minnesota got whatever they wanted offensively in the first half. And you heard Coach McCaffrey talk about it. In that halftime speech, he let those guys have it. You got to guard somebody, and they came back out in that second half, and that's what they did. They held Minnesota at 38% from the field. Minnesota scored 51 in the first half, just 34 in the second half. But the player of the game was Owen Freeman. He kept them in the game in the first half, and then in the second half, he was big time. 17 points, 14 rebounds, 7 of them on the offensive end. He was flying around, protecting the basket. That's your freshman of the year.
You left out his 4 assists and 4 blocks. which he did just in honor of trying to take that freshman of the year back away from you and Cam Christie. He was magnificent. Those 5 offensive rebounds in the first half. I mean, without those, Iowa would have been completely out of this game. He was able to be competitive on the boards against a lot of big players and just dominated inside, even while his teammates were struggling to find their range. And then they all found it in the second half. You had Peyton Sanford and Patrick McCaffrey together score 42 points. It was a magnificent performance on the perimeter for the Hawkeyes in the second half.
How about Freeman Steele at the end of the first half? I mean, that was what is he? He's 7 feet, 6'11". Steele, 3 dribbles, basket with a little jelly roll at the end. I mean, he just so engaging in the game, made a big difference when things weren't going well. Minnesota will look back at this game now. They got in foul trouble early. Some of them are little ticky-tack fouls that they can avoid. You know, there's one thing playing hard, and then there's playing smart. But Payne not being in there, Hawkins missing a lot of the time, it really hurt him. And obviously Garcia's injury meant a lot to them too. They'll look back at this tape. They're almost there to win these road games, but you got to play really special to win on the road in the Big Ten.
You can't be almost there,
Yes,
not in February
absolutely
in the league.
right.
Minnesota 51 in the first half, but Iowa doubles down with 52 in the second half. And speaking of doubling down on that same theme, it would make sense that the star of the game had 21 because that's always a good number if you're doubling down. It's Peyton Sanford, 21 points in a post-game interview with Sean Morris.
Peyton, congratulations to you and your team on a tremendous comeback win. As one of the guys that's kind of been around a little bit, what was your message to your teammates, not just in the locker room, but as the second half began?
Yeah, we kind of got down 18-20 to start that second half, and there was a lot of passion in all of the huddles and all the at halftime and the timeouts, and we just needed it to translate on the court. And then, I think once our intensity picked up defensively, that's kind of where, the game changed and hopefully our season changes. Like, we needed a spark like this. We needed to get this one. I'm proud of everyone. Everyone was fighting. The bench was into it. Crowd was into it. It was a big-time win.
You knocked down a couple threes as the second half unfolded, but how important was it for you to kind of establish getting in the lane as well in the second half?
Yeah, they're big. We're in big foul trouble, so, we kind of talked about we have to attack them because they don't really want to foul us. And, Tony did a great job. Patrick did a great job. Owen was phenomenal the whole night. And then when I was able to get downhill and finish, I think, it started changing the game for us.
Well, you finished. Your team did as well. Tremendous comeback. Go enjoy it.
Yeah, thank you.
Another good one in Evanston. Northwestern hosting Penn State. No Ty Berry for the Wildcats. Nittany Lions in search of their 4th straight win. Ace Baldwin denied by Brooks Barnheiser. We're going the other way with Boo Buie. Oh, the little hesitation. No, he didn't. Free throw good. Give me all 3 of those. The Wildcats jump back in front by a deuce. Later second half, Northwestern now up by 6. It's Buie again. That's ballroom dancing. You take classes to learn how to move like that. With the left hand, Boo had 15. Cats up by 8. Penn State trying to hold on, down 4. Ace Baldwin, the nice look to Nick Kern. Kern led all scorers with 18, but Penn State still down by a deuce. And then it's Ryan Langborg. You cannot leave Ryan Langborg that wide open. Langborg had 14, Cats up by 4. 6-point game, last seconds, last chance for Penn State. Kern throws it away. Barnheiser finishing 1 rebound shy of a double-double. Northwestern 68-63. Here's Chris Collins post-game with Robbie Hummel.
Coach, there's something about you guys and close games. They seem to follow you everywhere. How did you guys pull this one out here today?
Well, honestly, I think this might have been our best win of the season. Coming off not having Ty, who's such an important part of our team. Now all of a sudden you got a new lineup, new rotation, and you're playing a team that it's really hard to play against. The way they trap and move and disjoint the game. So for our guys to just hang in there, we found enough baskets and enough stops to win a real grinded out game.
Back-to-back games now where your defense has been really good. What's been different in these two about the way you guys have guarded?
I just think being a little more locked in, a sense of urgency for it. When you take 13.5 points out off the board, but we need to rely on it more now, right? I mean, we're going to probably have lower scoring games until we can get Ty back, but just proud of the guys' resolve. I told them the whole game, guys, all the games aren't pretty. Sometimes in this league, you got to muck one out and muck out a dirty game, and that's what it was tonight.
With no Berry, certainly the guys that have been playing have to do more, but you also had some guys out there today that haven't played a whole lot. What did you think about the minutes that they gave you?
I thought they did fine. Blake Smith hasn't played at all the whole year. Jordan's played minimal minutes. The main thing is those guys just getting confidence. They're going to be thrust in there now for the time being. They got to come in, they got to play D, they got to be solid and be confident. I thought they did that today.
At first, I was thinking, Chris Collins, your best win of the year. You've beaten Dayton, you've beaten Illinois, you've beaten Purdue. But then you start to think about it and what this win could do, because these are the kind of games you are going to see at some point in the Big Ten tournament and at some point in the NCAA tournament.
It was gritty, not pretty. I mean, you look at Northwestern, they shot the ball 32% from the field. Nothing was going offensively. Brooks Barnheiser goes 3 of 15 from the field, and they still found a way to win the basketball game, and that's all that matters at this time of the year. They took care of the basketball, only 6 turnovers, and then they won the rebounding war. And not just winning the rebounding war, they had 13 offensive rebounds, which led them to 18 second chance points. And when you struggle to score in the half court, the ball's not going in for you. You got to find ways to steal baskets. They were able to do that. And then they did a tremendous job of keeping the basketball in front. Ace Baldwin gave them 17. But only made 4 shots.
We never will know if Penn State would have adopted exactly the defensive approach that they did against Boo Buie had Ty Berry been healthy, because it would have freed up a lot of shooting. But the double teams, the attacks, Northwestern had to take Boo off the ball. So how does he make an impact? In transition, that beautiful hesitation move. We've showed it to you 3 times. We could fill the whole show with that one. But then this one, that beautiful wraparound pass to Matt Nicholson. It was just a phenomenal play. I don't know how he did that. It was incredible. And then this last one, you talked about the ballroom dancing that he comes up with when he gets down to the post. Just an amazing play. Shakes, goes one direction, the other. I'm thinking maybe Dancing with the Stars could be his next NIL opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe not ballroom dancing. Maybe it was more like the lambada, the forbidden dance, because it was pretty nasty.
But Boo did a great job. Great point guards, play with their eyes like crazy. He looked off so many different defenders just by looking at one place. Everybody for Penn State would adjust, and he hit the open man. And now Penn State's got to look at this game. They really did everything defensively they wanted to do except complete possessions. So they got them to miss shots. They didn't block out well. And I said to you earlier, Rick, I said this is going to be a turnover game. Who would think that Penn State was going to turn the ball over more than Northwestern? Northwestern doesn't turn it over. They lost to Penn State at Penn State by turning it over. They didn't turn it over today. That in my mind was a game.
Yeah, this is an important win for Northwestern as well. Penn State had won 3 in a row, but when you're Northwestern and when you are at home, you're protecting not just your NCAA tournament seeding, but you're also protecting your hopes to have at least a single, if not a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. A very important 68-63 win for the Wildcats. Speaking of the Big Ten tournament and speaking of standings, it was a seismic Saturday in that regard in the Big Ten. Rutgers knocks off Wisconsin. 4th straight loss by the Badgers. Michigan State stays in the picture. Great performance against Illinois. Ohio State works double overtime to beat Maryland. Could be the death knell for the Terps. Back at home where Nebraska has to take care of business. They run Michigan completely out of the building. And then Purdue so dominant against IU that Zach Edey's out there knocking down 3-pointers. The first triple of his career for the big fella. And so you look at the updated standings and how different they look from where they were about 2 weeks ago when Wisconsin was sitting at 8-1. Everybody was chasing. Suddenly Purdue with a 2.5-game lead over the rest of the league. And the schedule for Purdue, nothing in this league is easy, but it is favorable compared to everyone else giving chase, as the Boilers now become even more of a prohibitive favorite in this conference race. Mike, you started the show by saying the race is really no longer for the top spot. The race is for all those important slots behind the Boilermakers.
Yeah, I look at Northwestern in that spot at 8-5. That's really fascinating. They have a great shot now to get a double bye and not have to play until Friday in the quarterfinals. Michigan State, we keep waiting. When will they arrive and fulfill the potential that they know they have, that Tom Izzo has said that they have, and that he's believed in these players, and he continues to follow the same course. He believes in these guys, and yesterday they played maybe their best game of the year, certainly their most essential game of the year. So they are right there as well in that situation where they could play for a double bye. And I think both of them are trying to get what Wisconsin has had fairly locked up, or seemed to have fairly locked up for the last month.
Yeah, you know, as a coach, I was never really fixed on except winning the championship. Am I going to get a double bye? Where are we going to be? Who are we going to play? And I think more coaches are like me, that maybe they just are worried about how can I be good in the next practices, the 2 practices everybody has before every game. Get these 2 practices done, get better, so that I can be in position to be in position and win. Because you don't always know. You might think you got a favorable matchup, and it might not be the one that you wanted to have. So I would focus right now with these. Look at those stands. How can I make my team better every day in practice, and it will all work itself out?
Yeah, I agree with Coach. As a player, we never talked much about seeding or who we were going to play or win. And I finished last place in this league, and we were able to win that first game. It felt like we had a real chance to go on and win the whole thing. So everybody feels like they have a chance right now. You look at Rutgers sitting at 11th in the league at 5-7. You look at their remaining schedule. They have a real chance of going 6-2, getting to 11 wins, and maybe they get a double bye. This league race is in full force. You can't lose a game, especially if you're at the top of the league, because that bottom, they're coming.
Yeah, Coach Beeline says you can finish where you have to play on Thursday. You then get in a plane accident and have to wear practice jerseys to start in your first game, and you can still make the run through the tournament if your team is playing the way that it's supposed to be playing.
It's not the easiest way to do it, Rick.
It's not.
But
it is the most dramatic, though.
It was a lot. There was a lot of things fun on that run except the first day. That was not fun on that whole day. I mean, the travel
I can
was
still
not
remember
fun.
the halftime interview with you after that first game and how emotional you were.
Yeah.
I like to think it was my questions. I know better. I know that it was all the background leading into it. Hey, the end of that story was pretty good as well. The biggest story in all of college basketball made its way to Lincoln, Nebraska on Sunday. Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes taking on the Huskers. Clark 39 points away from being the NCAA all-time leading scorer in women's hoops. Second quarter, it's Clark working in the paint and scoring. Had 17 in the first half, so she's 22 away from breaking Kelsey Plum's record. Under a minute to go second quarter, Clark not just scoring, but sharing, finding Kate Martin. Clark with 1,000-plus assists now in her career. Iowa into the half up by 4. Pull away in the third quarter. Iowa by 6. It's Clark for 3. The countdown is down to 10, but she would make only 2 free throws from there on out. Would not score a field goal in the fourth quarter. Goes 0 for 6, and back come the Huskers. Logan Nisley for 3. Nebraska within 4. Once 14 down, 30 ticks to go. Jazz Shelley, that is just plain clutch. Scores Nebraska's last 9. Huskers go up 78-77. Last try for Iowa. It's Clark with 5 seconds to go. Off the back iron. Nebraska beats Iowa 82-79 and holds off the record-setting celebration not on their court. Allison Williams is with the victorious Huskers.
I'm just so proud of our kids. They stayed with it. We've been talking all week about our response, and our kids' response to getting down was great. They stayed confident, they stayed aggressive, and I'm just so proud of them.
What can you say about the performance of Jazz Shelley down the stretch?
Yeah, she was big time, and we've been believing in her from the first time I ever saw her play. So to watch her do that on this biggest stage, I couldn't be more thrilled.
What did you guys do to shut down Caitlin Clark in that fourth quarter?
No, we didn't shut her down. I know she scored over 30. We've been talking about we haven't found a way to crack the code, but we'll take it if we can get the win.
Amy, look around. You played here. This is a sold-out arena for the first time, like you envisioned, and you just delivered a win against the number 2 team in the country. What does that mean?
It's big time. It's so fun. I'm so proud of Husker Nation. I'm so thankful to be the head coach at Nebraska.
I love these fans. They come in every single day to come and support us, so I'm very thankful, and this is the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. And my family's here from Australia. They just got in yesterday and they get to see this. It's unreal.
It's such an unreal scene, and Coach talked about, showing you around this building, saying someday we will sell it out. Today, you sold it out and you delivered the win. How special is this?
It's so special. I think it's huge for our program and huge for our team. Like, we know we can do this. We've been waiting for this game. We knew we could do it, and we did it.
You had the big 3, the clutch free throws. What was going through your mind as you looked to close this thing out?
I just wanted to win this game so bad. I wanted it so bad. I mean, as soon as I laid my hands on it, I could feel it was good.
How cool is that for Jazz Shelley? Parents from Australia, they get there and they get to see their daughter hit the clutch shot to lead Amy Williams and the Huskers over the number 2 team in the country. I love it. It was a beautiful day in Lincoln, except in the locker room where the showers were raining down, and Coach Williams was more than happy to be the recipient of that bath. Christy Winter-Scott joins us now. What a performance by Nebraska. You had to think midway through the third quarter when it's a 14-point game and Iowa's offense is flowing, this thing was over. How did Nebraska change the outcome and do it so quickly?
Well, it just looked like they took away what Iowa wanted to do, especially in the paint. It looked like those drop-off passes that came so easily for Iowa all season long, they were there to make the deflections. They were there to make the right plays and the right rotations on the defensive end. But I also think they crowded Caitlin Clark's space. And that's what she thrives in. She wants space, whether it's for her to score or for her to facilitate for her teammates to score. I mean, she almost had another triple-double. She's had 4 triple-doubles this season, 52 double-doubles for her career, and 15 double-doubles this year. So she was right on track with that. She had those 10 assists, so she was making plays. But there were a lot of turnovers that Iowa had, especially early on, that caused them to be disjointed on the offensive end.
In this league where you have stars like Caitlin Clark and Mackenzie Holmes, multiple stars at Ohio State, you go down the list, and Jazz Shelley may not be the first name out of people's mouths, but she has done it for a long time at Nebraska. She can facilitate. She runs the offense. We saw she can be a big-time clutch shooter.
Yes.
She does rate, in my opinion, as one of the more underrated players, not just in this league, but maybe in this country.
No question about it. I mean, she transferred from Oregon, right? And she was there as a shooter, and she was definitely striking from the outside. But this is going to be known as the blooming onion for right now.
You like that? I love it.
She's from Australia, so the blooming onion that's what that is. But I think for her confidence to come in and want that shot for the team and to not only thrive in this area with Nebraska, but to have Alexis Markowski to be a great piece of that dynamic duo, the inside-outside punch. But Markowski can stretch the floor too and knock in threes. But I just think it was really impressive for Amy Williams, who was a walk-on at Nebraska, to have tears in her eyes at the end of that game and to say that she was thankful to be the coach of that team. That's what this is all about. I mean, the volleyball team, you saw what they did. They sold out the football stadium earlier this year. And then now to have the sellout in the basketball arena as well.
And the unbelievable scene as they do storm the court. And let's not forget that we really can't overstate the importance of this win for Nebraska's postseason hopes, because now you have a win over the number 2 team in the country. That's most important. Secondary, you don't really want anybody to set a record on your home floor, and Nebraska was able to avoid that as well. As for Caitlin Clark's perspective, she was asked post-game if her quest to become the all-time leading scorer had started to become a distraction.
Has not been a distraction at all. You know, it is what it is. It's what comes with the territory, and when it happens, it happens. Really not going to affect my life that much, and just going to keep going about my business as I have for the past 4 years, and pouring into my teammates every single day, and hopefully, you know, leading this team to reach our goals, whether it's Big Ten regular season title, whether it's Big Ten championship and tournament, or, you know, getting back to the Final Four. That's where my focus lies, and I think I've been, you know, doing this long enough. This is my 4th year. I think I understand, you know, you can't get too caught up in one loss. You know, that can't, you know, deter your season at all. So just buying into the girls and lifting them up, because all everybody needs right now is a boost of confidence, and I know I can give it to them.
Caitlin says when it happens. I'm pretty sure we can say it's going to happen on Thursday night at Carver Hawkeye. She is 7 points away from tying, now just 8 points away from passing Kelsey Plum. And you think about how many games she has left to play, counting the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament. She will be well ahead of the rest of the field by the time that she is all done. I'd also like to point out, Christy, that she doesn't have to go into the media room. That is not an obligation for a player. They can choose not to go in, and Lisa Bluter could take another player. Caitlin Clark has not shied away after wins, after losses, after good performances, or after subpar performances, and there aren't very many of those, from what she is doing right now. And I think she deserves a lot of respect for that portion of this chase.
Well, she owns what she is doing right now, which is galvanizing the women's game, and not just women's basketball, but women's athletics in general. She has been a front runner in terms of knowing how, when, and just with the right amount of give back, right? You've seen her signing autographs for those little kids in the stands, boys and girls with the bright eyes looking at her, and she's right there signing them because she was once that 9 or 10-year-old child who had aspirations to become great. So she understands what that means and that connectivity that she creates with the community of young people who see the possibility in what it takes to be a successful winner that she is. So even if they lost the game today, it's not necessarily wins, losses in games, but it's wins, losses in life and how you approach life. And I think that's why Caitlin Clark is special and a cut above. She's not pouting because they lost. She was like, hey, this is what happens. And she takes it like a pro. And that's why when she goes pro, whenever that is, she's going to be a fantastic front runner for our game. And when she gets to the WNBA, it's just going to be that much brighter.
And she will be a monster draw like she is now. The lines were stretching outside Pinnacle Bank Arena for hours before tip-off today for fans that just wanted to get in and get a glimpse of her warming up. Before we end this conversation, I know that you were on the call on Thursday for Iowa's last game inside Carver Hawkeye. When you think about you being done watching Caitlin Clark in her college career, what are you going to think about for someone who has had the chance to cover her throughout much of her career at Iowa?
Well, I've seen her since day one. And for me, every time I see her, I tell her how important it is, how vitally important it is for her to just continue to be herself. People are going to say what they're going to say about you, like her passion. They're going to say that's anger. No, it's not. It's love of the game. It's the work ethic that she's put into it. And it's unapologetic. Like, she can't go out there and play for anybody else but herself and be herself. And that's what Lisa Bluder saw in her in middle school. That's what she saw in her in high school, where she scored 70 points. And her freshman year, Lisa Bluder said, you don't need to come in here and score 70. We have great players to surround you with. And, you know, for her to have these just gaudy assist numbers, it just speaks to who she is as a person. She could have 50 points a game, but she knows how important it is to move the basketball and to be a team-first player. And I think that's why all the kids are gravitating to her, and the game is being galvanized once again because of a player like Caitlin Clark.
Well, you were there to see it in person. Hannah Stuelke had 15 assists from Caitlin Clark on a night where she didn't score as much as she typically does.
Right.
Most players would be very happy with 27 and 15. They'd be ecstatic because it'd be their career nights. Caitlin just happens to do it every night. Take a look at the Big Ten assist leaders for the season. It's a go for Elijah Hawkins on top. He and Braden Smith, the only two players on this list with more than 7 dimes a game. Some really good guards like Boo Buie, Ace Baldwin, A.J. Hoggard there. But clearly, Hawkins and Smith are the guys to share that sugar, as they say. A little bit more on the Purdue sophomores. We check in with the Big Ten Network's award-winning feature series, The Journey, for this focus on Braden Smith.
Garage is actually the nickname of it. I hated it. It was terrible. Sweaty, cold some days. Like, it was just a terrible, terrible time.
We always ask him what his goals were. Like, and when you tell us what they are, like, we're going to do whatever we can do to try to help you achieve them. He said, you know, I want to play basketball at the highest level possible. I want to play Division I basketball, and I want to play for a team that can compete for a national tournament. If this is what you want to do, like, this is the kind of time you're going to have to put in, and then you're going to have to work on your body. Fortunately for us, we were blessed with Tavio right under our nose.
When he first started working out, obviously it was at the high school in the weight room there, and then COVID hit, so everything was shut down. I went back and forth about would it be okay situation to just open up my garage, and I knew I had weights there and enough for athletes to come over and train. Come on. In terms of weight, he wanted to gain 50 pounds or more. Good. He wanted to increase his speed, increase his vertical jump. I outlined to him how hard it was going to be to get from point A to point B. Get close to him. Get up.
I came in at like 130, and I left, I think, by about 170, 175 in that 4-month span. It was a huge change. Like, it was just all muscle. The diet was the biggest thing. Like, I'd get 8,000 calories in a day.
That alone was a process. I mean, I spent more time cooking and making protein shakes and milkshakes and eggs, and I mean, I felt like all I was doing was feeding him.
I'm not sure his body would have been what it was if it wasn't for that time period of him just working so hard. You see his body that comes back the next year and he's put on all this weight and it's all muscle, and and it's just because his dedication in the weight room.
One of the biggest things I think after we finished was the increase in confidence. Okay, I really believe even more that I can be a great player, that I can go to the next level.
He always pushed me, and like I think he saw something in me at an early age that like I wasn't gonna quit, and like I wanted to work hard and I wanted to be great.
Braden Smith's former diet sounds like what Coach Beilein told us is on his Super Bowl menu later tonight. Smith and Purdue, #1 seed in Mike DeCourcy's latest bracket. Wisconsin and Illinois, 3 seeds. Now, of course, this is before this weekend's play. Wisconsin, Illinois both losing. Northwestern, Michigan State, Nebraska, 8, 10, 11 respectively. And all those teams were victorious this weekend. But as you look at where these teams shape up, Mike, in comparison to other teams nationally, I think yourself, many other bracketologists believe Purdue is the top overall seed, even though UConn is #1 in the poll. You make an interesting point that this year, neither one of those teams really care if they end as a top overall seed. Why?
Well, first of all, I can tell you that I can make the case for Purdue why they're the 1 overall seed. They've got between the two quads, first quad, second quad, 15 of their victories. That's nearly all of their victories are quad 1 or quad 2. UConn has 8 quad 4 victories. So I'm not trying to demean UConn. They're having a phenomenal year, but I'm trying to show you what the difference is. And then I can tell you why it doesn't matter, which is that the first round of the NCAA tournament will be played at Indianapolis. There will be another one played in Brooklyn. UConn wants to go to Brooklyn. They don't want to come to Indy. It's a nice place, but they don't want to come there. Purdue wants to be there. So neither wants either's first round site. And then when you go to the regional round, you've got one in Boston, which is an hour and a half away from Hartford and Storrs. And then you've got one in Detroit, which is about 3.5, 4 hours from West Lafayette. So neither wants what the other wants. And conveniently, neither does anybody else that's in the conversation. Carolina would probably like to be in Houston, maybe Boston if they had to, but they're not high on that list. Arizona wants to be in California and L.A. for the regional round. So Houston and Kansas both want to be in Dallas. So nobody wants what Purdue wants. So it doesn't matter who's 1 overall. It only matters really that they stay a 1 seed, and they are certainly on the track to do that.
And the only way that's going to happen is they keep winning games. They got to get better every single day, like Coach Beilein mentioned in practice. And I love what Zach Edey said after the game they beat Indiana. We are far from a finished product. We still have work to do. They didn't have their best offensive game against Indiana, but they figured it out on the defensive end, and that's where this team needs to keep growing. This is their best defense the last 3 seasons, but I still feel as though they can get better, especially on the perimeter. They get to the tournament, they face a team that has 3, 4 quick guards, and that's going to give them problems. So I think Purdue has to keep building day by day, especially on the defensive end, keeping the basketball in front. Because like you said, Coach, if they don't get better, this conversation doesn't matter.
They got to get better. I think we were fortunate to have a lot of success in March. In the last decade, I was at Michigan. And I think one of the reasons was I always coached in leagues where it was one bid league. And you worked all year. It didn't make a difference about these games. You had to be really good the first weekend of March. And so if you just had to get better every day. That was the focus. So now, fast forward and you're in the Big Ten. And now you continue that type of philosophy, and then you're going to be ready for anything when it comes to March. And I think I wouldn't want to know Mike DeCourcy is or anybody. Just forget about it. Focus on your team getting better. The heck with him, right? Just make sure that your team is practicing hard and smart every day, and it will all come together.
Listen, trust me, Mike takes enough heat on all the different social media sites for what he posts. He's not going to take any offense to that comment whatsoever.
No. One thing I'll say is that this Big Ten is a little different than in past years. With Mike Rhodes coming into Penn State, you're seeing the pressure defense. So it's a different look. It's not as basic. All man-to-man's different, but you saw a lot of man-to-man in the league in the past. Now you're seeing at Rutgers, they're going 1-3-1 zone a little bit from time to time. So there's more variety, and you need to see that kind of variety, because when you get into the tournament as a high seed like Purdue is, they will throw anything into the court to try to stop you, because that's all their goal is. If you're the 16 or the 15 or whatever, you have one goal: win this game. They don't care about anything beyond that. They want to win that one game. They will do anything to do it. So the more prep you get in different variety of ways to do that, the better success you might have.
It is all about how you play. You can listen to all the different pundits out there. I remember traveling with you out to L.A., and I heard how much Texas A&M and Florida State would be tough matchups for Michigan because of the size and what they had. Texas A&M quit in the second half. Florida State had 3 bigs that are now playing in the NBA, and you won both games fairly easily.
The other thing happened the year before, or back in 2013, where we were up in Michigan, and we played VCU, the Havoc, the second round, and it was like one of our easiest wins of the year. And they said, how'd you do that? I said, we only had 1 day to prep. No, we had been practicing pivoting and playing with your head up and dribbling 2 balls and doing all the stuff that you would do all year. So you got to get your team ready for anything. You just can't worry about, what seed we should be. I used to laugh at the coaches that would get upset about where their seed was. The hell with it. You could be wishing yourself right into a defeat if you get the wrong team on a 1-day prep.
John, this is why I save time, and after I fill up my bracket before the games are even played, I roll it up into a ball and I throw it in the trash can.
There you go.
Women's buckets from East Lansing. Michigan State hosting number 5 Ohio State. This one all Buckeyes all the time. J.C. Sheldon, nice little Euro step. Sheldon had 18, Buckeyes up by 15 later in the second. So many options for Kevin McGuff to go to, like Ricky Harris. I'll take all 4 of those. Free throw is good. Buckeyes up by 18. Cody McMahon, she of recent double-double after double-double. The share to Celeste Taylor, who led all scorers with 20. Ohio State wins it 86-71. Mackenzie Holmes began the day 17 points away from breaking the all-time Indiana scoring record, previously held by Tyra Buss. Taking on Purdue, Sarah Scalia's been hot as of late from downtown, knocks down the triple. Indiana leads it by 9. And then it's Chloe Moore McNeil coming off a triple-double performance. She can also shoot the 3-rock. Indiana up by 21. And then the Mac Daddy would get hers and get the record, with this bucket becoming the all-time leading scorer for the Hoosiers. Indiana wins it 95-62. Maryland taking on Illinois, the Play 4K game, as the players holding up signs letting everyone know on this important day who they play for. Under a minute to go first half, Maryland by 5. Lavender Briggs, tough catch inside and finish. Briggs had 15. Terps up by 5 at the break. Midway through the third, Illini making this one tough. Gretchen Dolan mid-range J. Illinois within 1. They would get no closer. How about this from Cheyenne Sellers? Loses the ball going up, just taps at it. It goes in. And the free throw, 11 of her 18 in the fourth quarter. Maryland 69-53. Penn State, Wisconsin, second straight roadie for the Lady Lions. It would not turn out well. Wisconsin up by 6. Sarah Williams hits the mid-range jumper. Wisconsin outscores Penn State 24-7 in the third quarter alone. Under 3 minutes to play, Shea Chesky knocks down the 3 to tie this thing up at 60, but Wisconsin had all the late mo. It's Williams again. Badgers plus 19 in the second half as they beat Penn State 69-64. Big Ten women's basketball standings. Ohio State atop the league all by themselves after the Iowa loss to Nebraska on Sunday. Buckeyes are at 12-1. And remember, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Iowa as well. Indiana has lost to both Ohio State and the Hawkeyes. Nebraska, Michigan State, Michigan, and Penn State, the remaining teams above 500 in league play. We are back with Christy Winter-Scott. I know Iowa gets most of the attention. Right. Caitlin Clark, they're number 2 in the country. Folks better not be sleeping on Ohio State, because the Buckeyes have everything that Kevin McGuff could ever want. Offensively, they play really good defense, and this is an experienced team that knows how to play together.
No question about it. And you're talking about a staunch defensive team in Ohio State. They are fantastic. They are in a flurry when it comes to full court pressure, and that's led with J.C. Sheldon. She came back after being injured for most of last season, came back at the end, but now she has something to prove. And you can tell she plays hungry on the defensive end, but I also think it's contagious. You have a player like Cody McMahon, who has come alive the last 6 or 7 games in terms of her consistency on the offensive end. But I think it's always going to be about the defense for Kevin McGuff and his squad, because that's what leads to the easy offense. That's what leads to the runouts. That's what speeds you up in the quarter court and causes havoc for you in terms of your decision making. So for Ohio State, I think number 5 in the country right now, with Iowa losing, I think there's going to be a shift there in the polls. But I think with Ohio State playing the way that they are on the defensive end, I think that's going to be a key moving forward.
Yeah, certainly a team that has a case to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. As for Indiana, who was a 1 seed a year ago, Mackenzie Holmes has had such a phenomenal career. She passes Tyra Buss to become the all-time leading scorer. And let's not sleep on the Hoosiers either, because this is a team that can fill it up 95 today against Purdue.
Yeah, no question about it. And you're talking about the return of the MAC, right? She came back for her 5th year for a reason. She's hungry, too. She has something to prove, unfinished business, if you will. But I think Mackenzie Holmes is such a great player because she has changed and evolved in her role. She's not just a back-to-the-basket player. She can face up, she can knock in threes, but she can also pass out of a double team a little bit better. You saw her doing that in the second half of last season when players started giving her a little more attention defensively. So I think she's played with a calm demeanor, but I also know that her speed of the game has changed and her footwork has been tremendous.
With her ability on the inside, Sarah Scalia, Yarden Garzone, the way that they can shoot threes, they're a tough team to defend when they get that offense cooking. Coming up Tuesday, don't miss more women's hoops. Gophers and Scarlet Knights battling it out on the banks. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. With Valentine's Day coming on Wednesday, we have to look back to the true Valentine's Day. Denzel Valentine on Valentine's Day with 17 points in the game-winning three-pointer with just 4 seconds left to lead Michigan State past Ohio State. Russell Stover hearts for everybody inside the Breslin Center. Always love to call Denzel the enigma wrapped in a riddle. I had no idea what he was going to do. He had no idea what he was going to do. Coming up Wednesday, a Valentine's Day double dip begins with the Spartans and Nittany Lions. Then the Hawkeyes square off with the Terps. It's Big Ten Hoops presented by Ram Trucks Wednesday, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Coverage begins with the tip-off show at 6 Eastern. It is time for this week's edition of Advanced Scout. Rick Pizzo back with Rayfel Davis, Mike DeCourcy, and John Beeline, who has made me promise that since he's not here on Wednesday, I will ship the Russell Stover heart down to the golf course. Well, he will be working on his game in Florida, enjoying the weather, which is much better than what we have here. But I'm not jealous. Advanced Scout looks at Wisconsin, who has suddenly become a little bit jealous of Purdue and some other teams in this league that are actually winning because the Badgers have lost 4 in a row. And this isn't all on A.J. Storr, but we have some interesting looks at shot charts from A.J. Storr in Big Ten play in wins versus losses, the way that he's used, his free throw rate, his usage rate. John, the numbers aren't a ton different in wins versus losses, and yet Wisconsin's offense seems to be very different over the last 4 games.
I think we were talking about a month ago about Wisconsin. Remember they scored 50 points in a half one time, and AJ, it was all AJ Storr, and now scouting reports are out. And my thought here is AJ Storr, this is a system at Wisconsin that you have to understand. You might have to touch the ball 3 times. You'll touch the ball 3 times in one possession, right? They're just going to move it, and then you wait to attack. He's probably never, I'm sure he's been coached well, but not played the Wisconsin system. So he's got to learn, when do I attack, when do I stay back, and not let the ball stick and do some different things. Once he does that. Now, at the same time, Greg Gard's got to find ways, right, to get him open to do those things.
That's what I was going to say, Coach. You look at A.J. Storr, got to find ways to attack, and that system is great at Wisconsin, but maybe it's time to change the system a little bit because A.J. Storr, you haven't had a player like this in that system in the last 15 years. And when A.J. Storr, when he's able to get to that right side of the floor, to the left side, he's a better finisher. You think about the scouting report, guys have found out where he likes to score the ball, and in their continuity of their offense, it really struggles when he's on that other side of the floor.
One of the things that really needs to be discussed as well is that Wisconsin has allowed its offensive struggles to impact its defense. That's atypical for them, but it really shows up. All of the opponents during the 4-game losing streak have scored more than a point per possession. This is a team that typically it's top 40 on defense and probably was closer to 30 when the losing streak began. And all opponents before, the average had been well under a point per possession. They're allowing it to impact everything about their game, and that's having a diminishing effect on the results.
Some of it's also about timing. Penn State started to play its best basketball when it played Wisconsin. Rutgers got Jeremiah Williams, which made them a completely different team. Still, the Badgers go from 8-1 in the top the standings to 8-5, and now chasing the Purdue Boilermakers. One final break, and we're back with a look at the road ahead as we focus on the upcoming 7-day stretches awaiting the Wildcats, Spartans, and Fighting Illini. You're watching Big Ten basketball and beyond. Just enough time left for us to check the road ahead, and John starts with Northwestern, 2 road games, Rutgers and Indiana.
Yeah, you know what's really good, though? It's set up. They have a day off tomorrow. That will be huge for them to just rest a little bit, let Barry get maybe better, too, and then they got to go and attack. This is what it's a tough league, but these are going to be 2 tough games, really going to test to see who they really are down the stretch.
You guys are all about teams with road games. Michigan State at Penn State at Michigan.
That's why they call it the road ahead, Rick. The road, enough. The road for Michigan State has not been kind of a hidden stat in this league. They're 1-5 in road games, the Spartans are. These 2 teams that are coming up this week, they beat them at the Breslin Center by a combined 50 points. So a lot of opportunity for revenge for the opposition.
Raphael has Illinois. He's the only guy smart enough to pick a team that actually has a home game, at home against Michigan and then on the road in College Park.
Yeah, I want to see how Illinois plays this week. You look at how they lost that game at Michigan State. It got stagnant down the stretch. Their offense has been stagnant in the half court. They've got to find out a way to get some movement and some continuity, but they're still in the race for the Big Ten championship, although Mike doesn't think so. They got to take care of business. It starts with Michigan, and then they got to beat Maryland as well.
I'm not so sure that anybody's in the race for the title right now, the way the Boilermakers are playing, and I can't believe you're the guy that I have to say that to.
How about that?
For John Beeline, Mike DeCourcy, and Raphael Davis, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks for the hang.